Hi, all these nice people with names.
I don't think they can hear us yet. I'll let you know.
How do you guys feel about showing us your faces? Is that okay? There we go. If you could hit your video and then maybe in your little, box there, tell us where you're located, that would be great. Very nice. Thank you, everybody. It's a little housekeeping while you get set up. Annette, how's your speaker? No.
No. Oh, wait for like a second. Wait, go closer to your microphone.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
Just talk like that.
I'm gonna sit like right on top of this.
Okay, good. Sorry, we were having, you know how it is at the beginning of Zoom. You have to deal with all the logistics. So anyway, very welcome. My goodness. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. My former student. Okay, well, this is lovely, and everybody was on time, and I want to be able to respect your time and the fact that you made it here. We're going to get rolling. My name is, first of all, it's just so wonderful to see so many faces and see interest out in the field. And we're just taking a quick look to see, we've got Winnipeg, we've got Pittsburgh, Nashville, and that was Andrew, and that was Natalie, and that was Farah. John, where are you? Where are you? No, we can't hear John. John, you're muted. We'll come back to you. Barry is in Philly. Ellen is in Cincinnati. Debbie is in Vancouver. Wendy, where are you? You're muted. Francis, where are you?
I'm also in Cincinnati.
In Cincinnati. Debbie, you're in Vancouver. Camille is in Indianapolis. Oh, you know our friend Miranda. Wendy, where are you?
Hi, I'm in Chicago.
In Chicago. Okay, wonderful. Okay, if you're able to show us your faces, that's great. And if you're not, we get it. People are multitasking all the time, but hopefully you'll be so fascinated that you'll say, I need to engage with my eyes and ears and face, but we get it if you are unable. So first of all, it's really great to see this cross-section of folks from all over the country. And we're going to be efficient and we're going to get rolling. My name is Andy Mizels. I get the privilege of saying that I'm the director of the Martin Pear Israel Fellowship. It'd be good if I pronounced it properly. It falls under the category of my work as a senior advisor for Jewish education at the JCC Association, but it's really mostly what I do and what I really adore doing, and it's been a real privilege to work on this program. I feel like the word is out. We've only had one. We're in the middle of our first cohort, not even the middle. We're in month 10 of the first cohort. And in a minute, you're going to meet some folks who are in that cohort. And I feel like they're working really hard to spread the word about the program. I'm going to apologize for this little get up I have going on. I had some surgery, so I look kind of like a mess, but it's not out of not wanting to do my hair today, even though it's a good time saver. So why am I running this project? I came on initially as a thought partner because of my work in Jewish education. And the more I learned about it and the more I heard about it, I said, you know what, this is really a great thing. I would really love to be working on this. And they took me at my word and brought me on. And I feel very lucky to do that. It's all kinds of things that I love. It's peer learning, it's Israel education. These are both things that are close to my heart. So it's a real labor of love. And we were very, very lucky or strategic in gathering a phenomenal bunch of people for our first cohort. And it's been really exceeded all my expectations. And I hope we're able to do it again the second time around. So I just want to acknowledge a few of my friends and colleagues who are on the call. Sawyer Schwartz is the man behind the camera here doing all the logistics and admin for us, which as he does for the program all year. And we have two members of Cohort 1, Annette McCann, who works with us here at JCC Association. She's in the Department of Development Fundraising. And Rena Wagman, who also coincidentally is a development person out of the Boston JCC. I asked a bunch of people from the cohorts to be on the various info sessions because they'll tell you more and better about the program than I will, and you'll hear more from them later. So I'm going to give you a quick overview. You're going to hear from these two fellows. We're going to open up for Q&A, and we will get you back to what you were doing on time for 2 o'clock. Okay? Or right, 2 o'clock. So I'm going to not have people introduce themselves at the moment because I want to be able to use the time. But we see your names and where you're from. If the time allows, I'd be curious to hear the kinds of work that people do. Because as we'll underline probably more than once, what's so special about this fellowship is that we have a cross-section of people in every way, diverse in every way in terms of their professional lives, personal lives, the kind of work that they do, the departments that they're in. And so I'll be curious to hear who showed up here today. So here we go. Okay, it worked. Now, if I could get the other thing out of my way. Okay, very good. Is everybody able to see my screen? Very good. All right. I'm really only going to give you a taste because I want our current fellows to be able to tell you more. So first of all, I hope that you were inspired enough to give up your time. So I'm hoping that you went to the JCC Resource Center and read a lot of the detail about the program. It's all there. If you need the link, we can throw that up before the session is over. Maybe Sawyer, if you are able to locate it in time. We're going to try to answer whatever questions you have, but what we'll do here is give a little bit more color to what you may have read in black and white. Okay, so before we go any further, we really have to do something important, which is that we have to tell you why we have this program. So this program honors the legacy of Martin Pear. Marty was a longtime JCC person. He was what you call a lifer. He was a JCC exec. He's right in the middle with the glasses with a little kid next to his lap. He worked in several places, I think Connecticut, Massachusetts, Florida, upstate New York. I think he ended his career in Phoenix. He was really committed to the JCC movement, and he was really committed to Israel and Israel as a tool for building Jewish peoplehood. And he really appreciated and was dedicated to the values of the JCC movement of diversity, warmth, and kindness, repairing the world. He passed away in 2018, and his children wanted to find a way to honor his legacy. And this seemed to be his legacy, obviously, are the people in that photo. That's his family. But beyond that, they wanted something that really reflected his commitment to the Jewish community and to Israel. They came to us. They said, we'd like to build this program. And here we are today. And we're very honored to be the home of the program and to work with the Hoffer family. Rachel on the left there is Marty Pear's daughter. Jonathan on the right is her husband. They met at the JCC in high school playing tennis. Two of their daughters, Alexis and Alana. They really are wonderful people. They've been great partners, and they're very involved and interested and have great insights. So can't talk about the program without talking about where it came from. They're very excited about the first cohort and eager to see the next set of folks. So there are two main goals of the program. It has to do with Israel education and engagement, which, sometimes are used interchangeably. And building a personal connection with Israel. And that goes for the people who are part of the program, the fellows. We're working with the fellows to build their personal connection with Israel. And we're hoping and expecting them to go back and try to make that kind of work happen in their local JCC. And under that, and it's only barely under that, is building a strong professional cohort. The Israel engagement piece of it is number 1A, because it's not 2, it's 1B. It's really important to the Hoffer family because it was important to Marty to have people who work in the JCC movement and who stay in the JCC movement. Can everybody mute their? Could everybody mute? Thanks. He knew that, if you get people attached to other people and feeling good about other people, and that they see the world beyond their immediate JCC, there's a pretty good chance that they'll stick around. So he was all about the talent pipeline before talent pipeline was a phrase that we use. So these two things are really very important to the Hoffers, and we've been working on both of them. Those are the two main goals. So in terms of the educational arc of the program, what do? There's 3 sections: building a foundation and a common language. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, again, part of the diversity of the program is that in our current cohort, we have people who have had significant experience with Israel, and we have people who have never been to Israel. We have people who are not Jewish, and everything in between. So everybody's coming with a different background, and we want to have a certain amount of language and experience that we can use as a basis from which to grow. So the first few months were all about building that foundation. And for some people, it was a little bit of a review. And so for some people, it was brand new. And we have all kinds of resources, which if you become a fellow, you'll see. But we have a whole online platform with bibliography. So there's advanced bibliography if you want to go beyond what you already know. And then there's a beginners where you can go back and say, they mentioned the white paper. I don't know what that is. I'm going to go look for that. And here's a resource to help you do that. So, but we also want to have certain terms that everybody's familiar with and feels comfortable with. The second is corny. I call it Israel is real, but that's really what it's about. It's that you look into the complexities and nuances of Israel. This is a living, breathing, authentic, vibrant country where people live their lives. It's not Disneyland. It's not artificial. It's not, something from your 5th grade Hebrew school. It's that too. But it's a place that we want. It's very complicated. And there's a lot of levels to it. And we want to examine those. Part of that is a 9-day trip to Israel. And then the third part, and our cohort 1 folks are in it now, we're now transitioning into, okay, I learned a lot. It's really great. It was really fascinating. I looked at all kinds of, narratives of Israel. What is the relationship between Israel and North America? And what is the place of Israel in my center and in my community? We are aware that not everywhere is New York City, and that there are places in North America where there's certain pushback to bringing an Israel program even to a JCC. So we look at that, and we try to counsel on that, and we try to give people the tools to bring something home that's going to be well received. Okay, and that's this really doesn't do it justice, but that's really the overall arc. How do we do it? We have a 12-month program. We're starting in January 2024 with the second cohort. We do more or less a monthly webinar. The dates are already up in the Resource Center, so you should take a look at those and make sure that you're able to attend them. And we do a little bit of work individually, but mostly we focus on a prominent guest speaker. So we've had real wonderful, really fabulous speakers from the world of Jewish education, Israel education, people based here, people based in Israel, dealing with a particular topic. And again, I'm going to let the fellows answer some of these questions if they come up. But, history, arts, culture, politics, the demographics. This year, we've been talking a lot about the Supreme Court and issues in Israeli politics and government and what that means for Israeli society. We also do 3 face-to-face gatherings, one in the spring. I think we did it in March. I think we're also in March next year. 9 days in Israel. And then the cohort 1 is meeting again next week for their 3rd seminar. I think for cohort 2, we have it scheduled in November. There's preparation for the webinars and for the Israel trip. There are readings. Everything gets put up on the website. Sometimes there are little assignments. I send you off to interview somebody or do some other thing. You can ask about the homework and if I'm too strict. And then there's another thread to the program, which is the idea of community. Because while this program is meant to be enriching to the fellows, personally, we want you to feel enriched. We wouldn't have this program if we weren't asking people to, in some way, bring in what's going on in their community. And it's not always easy what's going on in their community. But whatever it means, we bring in the theme of community all through the program. What is community? How does it thrive? What is my community like? How might Israel engagement help my community, make it more vibrant? How can I be enriched by it? And what do I do, if I'm having a problem with it? So hopefully the fellowship helps people cope with that sort of thing as well. Let's make sure I've covered that. And so that's the first year. We call it an 18-month fellowship. I think that's probably fair. The active hands-on part really is January to December. And then for the next 6 months, people are working on projects that they're going to do in their local JCC. And the projects it all depends on your center. It has to be tailored to work for your community, your people, your membership, your center. In a place like Houston, which is already very robust and has, 3 different Israeli embassies working, and nobody needs to be convinced, or let's say there's a positive connotation with Israel. Maybe that's a more fair way to put it. So that person is really emphasizing early childhood. There might be another JCC where, it's a newer idea to bring in Israel engagement, and not everybody is thrilled with it. So it might be a smaller project. It might be an arts and culture project. So there's a lot of different directions. We're going to hear all about them next week when we meet. And there's almost no wrong way to go. What we do, though, because there is work involved here, we make sure as part of the application that your supervisor and your exec, if your exec is not your supervisor, actually sign off and say, I not only recommend this person, and here's why, I'm agreeing to make a financial contribution, which is modest, especially based on what we're providing, but that we know that this will take some time, and we are going to make it possible for this person to be able to do this during their work week. They're not going to have to spend a Sunday unless they choose to, because that's their preference, but that it's part of your work for the time that you're in the program. What else? And of course, when we're done in a given year, all the projects will be shared not only among the cohort, but we'll share it. Hopefully we'll build a bank that will be built year after year with the various cohorts, and so that we're enriching the entire JCC movement with ideas that could be adapted and used elsewhere. So that's it. I'm going to stop talking pretty soon. I'll just emphasize again that we want to see professionals across all departments. We want to see people with all kinds of life experiences. Being Jewish is not a requirement. Having been to Israel is not a requirement. That actually adds to the experience. The more interesting the group, the more interesting the experience, the more variety. The focus, and this was the request of the funders, was that people be working at a JCC between 3 and 5 years. In other words, that is your tenure in the JCC world. That doesn't mean your tenure as a professional. Maybe you've been out there for 30 years, but you've only worked at a JCC for 3. I will say, before people ask, there's a tiny bit of wiggle room in there, because we are looking for diversity. So, all things being equal, and we have, 100 people who meet every single one of the criteria, then we don't have to be changing our minds. But, maybe we'll have lots of great people, but we have nobody from the West Coast. Well, we need somebody from the West Coast. So maybe there's somebody who's 6 years in on the West Coast. You see what I'm saying? So I'm trying to encourage people to apply, even if there's a tiny bit of the tenure that doesn't fall quite right. You don't know. We won't know who the final cohort will be until we have the final pool of applicants. And that's when we build the cohort. I think that's all I'm going to say for now. And I'm going to invite Annette and Rena, and maybe we'll do it in that order so we're not confused, to just say a few words about what maybe I'll get rid of the screen. Maybe let me just flip through the last 2 slides. Right, this is cohort 1. This is at our gathering in March. I can't not put in a picture of food because we eat a lot. Also, I just happen to love the vibrant colors in the picture, and it gives you kind of it's an appetizer. It gives you a little taste of what might be coming. This is one of our little mini tours while we were in Jerusalem in May. Again, more food. Why did I put food twice? Because I don't know. I love the picture. Anyway, you know who to find if you need more questions. And now I will stop the share, and you can see the beautiful faces of our current fellows. So how about, Annette, if you just say a few words about what the experience has been like for you, a highlight or two, and then we'll let Rena have her turn, and then we'll take questions.
Sure. And hopefully everyone can hear me.
Yes, you're good.
Perfect. So coming into this program, I knew the importance of Israel in my heart. I understood, I believed in it, but I never felt comfortable engaging in a dialogue about Israel. I never felt confident enough in my expertise, in what I knew. It always felt complicated, and I didn't feel comfortable. And as Andy shared, I work in development and JCC Association. Israel is infused in almost everything that we do. We fundraise specifically for Israel engagement. And we have a lot of passionate donors who feel strongly about Israel, want to support it, want to fund it. And so it was I have to say that this program has been life-changing for me. to be able to go to Israel. I had never been before in my 43 years of life. I had never gone, and actually to go with such a strong foundation and education beforehand was truly amazing. Andy has worked so hard to create a curriculum that covers all facets of Israel. Although I do appreciate the food the most because that's but she has thoughtfully put in place just such a diverse range of topics. And I felt such a sense of belonging and pride when I got to Israel, one that I, again, had never felt before. And the irony of this whole situation is my first time to Israel was in May. And then I was going 2 months later for the JCC Maccabi games in Israel and hosting an entire VIP experience with many professionals who definitely were going to be engaging in Israel conversation. And I am so grateful for this program because I went to Israel the second time with a confidence I never had before, and a pride and a knowledge and belief. And it's been an incredible experience. And I'm probably not even doing it justice, but I just am grateful for it. And I'm excited to see so many faces on the screen because it is a life-changing experience.
I think you did pretty great. Thanks, Annette. Okay, Rena has a different story, having had some experience with Israel. So you actually have a very interesting, different perspective. So Rena, why don't you give us a few words?
I don't know how I can follow that up, Annette. That was all true. But yeah, I came at it from a different place. Most of my other jobs before the JCC have been in the Israel realm. I do a lot of Israeli dancing. I go once or twice a year for dance festivals. I've, gone as a kid. I studied abroad in Jerusalem. So really with a very strong connection with Israel. And I actually felt that, that was missing in my work at the JCC. I wasn't getting to interact with Israel as much as I have in past jobs. And so I was excited about this opportunity. And I remember when I interviewed with Andy, I said to her, like, I'm either exactly what you're looking for or exactly not what you're looking for. And I think, like she said, like really the variety in this group is what made it really special. Because I was what she was looking for, but then, we had people in our group like Annette who, had some connection to Israel, but, hadn't been and really didn't know how much connection she had to people who, aren't Jewish, didn't know the first thing about Israel. And it's just been an amazing, amazing group. I think, for me, because I already had a lot of the Israel education piece, the 1B of, building a professional cohort has been really special. I mean, Annette and I are actually the only development people in our cohort. You just happen to have both of us today, but, being able to sit and have drinks with her, in Jerusalem and be able to talk about development and have that relationship. And just, our cohort has a WhatsApp group that's continuously still going. We actually weren't even originally supposed to have this third gathering for our group, but we just, really connected so much that Andy made that happen for us. And it's just really, enriched, I think, my work at the JCC and my experience working at the JCC to have these people across the country that I can, really rely on, both as, professional colleagues and as friends. And also Andy is amazing. So learning from her is such a treat. She didn't pay us to say that. But really, I'm happy to answer any questions, but it's really, I highly recommend you all apply. And I've only been working at the JCC now 2.5 years. So I was well out of that realm of 3 to 5 when I started and took the chance, and it was well worthwhile. So definitely apply.
Thanks, Rena. That's lovely. And in general, we have a great team of educators and presenters that I have the privilege of sort of shepherding. And you'll meet lots of interesting people who have lots of different viewpoints and hopefully lots of wonderful cohort members. So I want to underline a little bit about the diversity of the group. if I, was Rena what I was looking for? I didn't know what we were looking for. This was our first year. So we did have criteria, and we were, you never know what your cohort is going to be until you get the pool of applicants. And for me, the idea is to build a strong cohort. I have some sense of instinct sometimes about what a strong cohort will be. Sometimes it isn't that way, but if you've been around the block long enough, you have a pretty good sense. But in terms of somebody who has been to Israel, Rena, who has quite an extensive background in Israel, I would say if there's anybody in that category here, and I think Rena will remember that I asked her in her interview, like, how are you going to feel when you're on the bus? And, you've been here and you know that. And then there's other people who haven't. And well, maybe rather than me paraphrase, I mean, why don't you share what you said to me that made me go, okay, we should take Rena.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think I said something to the extent of like, every time I go, I learn something new, and especially seeing it through other people's eyes. I mean, I used to lead trips to Israel for Federation here, for a living, and every time I just loved, bringing new people. And I think it was, also a really interesting experience for me, and, sometimes a challenge, but also really rewarding. I think I was probably quieter than I usually am, on our Israel trip, just because I was really taking in, what other people were feeling and experiencing, and that made it like a totally different experience than any other Israel trip. And I think in any case it is. I mean, we went to, community centers in Israel and met with people who do similar jobs to us, and things that are probably very different than other Israel trips that some of you may have been on. And we did, of course, a lot of the general touristy stuff that you do, but it was just, different seeing it through new people's eyes.
Mm-hmm. Great. Beautiful. So, I don't know what any of your backgrounds are. There's that possibility that we could get 200 applications and every single person has a master's degree in Jewish education. Well, okay, then that shifts, the kind of program we run, and there's other ways to have diversity. So I don't want to dissuade anyone in any direction, but based simply on the demographics of the JCC movement, our expectation is that we're going to get a variety the same way that we did this year. And now for Annette, maybe you can speak to what it was like to sort of encounter people who had varying backgrounds and how you all sort of learned from each other. Because I would say that in this cohort, people learned at least as much from each other as they did from anybody who was leading or presenting.
I mean, I thoroughly appreciated it. Rena, I especially appreciated when we were in Israel and you were helping us order food or finding different things throughout each city, and recognizing all the street signs and everything. It was incredibly helpful. But I mean, we all brought something to the table, and coming from, I mean, my viewpoint, I'm from JCC Association. I have a different community. And Andy, again, was so thoughtful. We all had roles and jobs on our trip. We all had to figure out what, some people were taking pictures. Some people were leading sessions. Some were, I drove an ATV through the desert. That was my contribution. And we had a lot of camp directors, and just seeing everyone sort of in their professional space bring something to all of our experiences. I mean, Rena led Israeli dancing for us, and that was tremendous and so impactful. And so I learned something from everybody. And I think it was great to have such a variety of those of us that had been, that hadn't been, that had been many times. It really enhanced the experience so much.
Okay, thank you. Beautiful. Okay, so how about we now entertain some questions from the field? Do folks have things they'd like to ask or something else you'd like to hear a little bit more about? Or you're, just sitting here wondering, how am I going to finish this application? I see Farah has a question. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, thank you for Annette and Rena for coming today and sharing your experience so far. And thank you, Andy. My question is, have you thought about, or are you in the process of what you're bringing back to your organization? Whether it's a project or a program or some type of idea that you're bringing back to your team or leadership. Just curious if you started that process.
Yeah, so actually by today we had to send Andy our ideas. And so of course I did it this morning. And we're gonna kind of flesh it out a little bit more when we gather together next week. Like I sent her actually 2 ideas and I said, I don't know what to do. What do you think? And she said, actually, I think it'll be interesting to hear what your peers say next week. And they'll really, help shape that. And I'm curious, I have no idea actually what everyone else is doing. It's been like we went to Israel and we had one session post Israel about our experience, and I think we also threw one in just because of the political situation. But there's actually been like a little hole in my life the past couple months because like we haven't been meeting every month and checking in with each other. So I'm pretty excited next week to see everyone and hear about what everyone's doing.
We did have a webinar in September. The break, I'll just clarify that we took a break in July and August because my experience is summer is, nobody knows when their vacation is going to be. You can't determine dates. And as you see, the dates are already up. And I know that it works because people have them, they're in the calendar and they know. So to try to do summer is crazy. In addition, we want camp people. And camp people really just cannot do it. They just simply cannot do it. And I didn't want to exclude. So we have, it won't be 10 webinars and it won't be probably 8. It's something like 7. So, but we haven't been together, Rena. And
yeah,
that
it
is what
it feels like a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Annette, you want to say a couple words about your project?
Sure. So I have a fairly ambitious one. We're going to see. Can I share it, Andy, or should I keep it?
Well, you can mention it. I don't want you to feel upset if it doesn't happen, but you can try. You can bring it up.
So, our staff we did a trip to Israel back in 2011, and long before my time, long before many of my colleagues' time. And it was such an incredible bonding and learning experience that I would love to bring to our association. When I said ambitious, it obviously requires a ton of funding and coordination and a whole lot. So we might be doing a little more of a low-hanging fruit option before attempting this. But I think, and there's a number of JCCs that have done staff trips, and I've heard such incredible, wonderful things about it. I would love for our association to have something like that as well here. So
Sawyer and I hope that happens too.
Yeah.
Right. So you see the variety. I mean, there are some folks I'm getting, they had homework, so I'm getting the assignments in today. So there are some folks who have, more modest plans, and I have no judgment on anybody because it all depends on your resources and the kind of, where you are physically, who is going to help you, what assets do you have and what challenges do you have? All we ask, and really the bottom line of the fellowship is, yes, we want to enhance your experience as an individual, as a professional, because because it's good. It's good to teach. It's good to learn. It's good for your center if you know more, period. And then we want to move the needle. And for some JCCs, even a modest program is going to move that needle so far that it will be revolutionary. And then for other centers or fellows, it's only going to really maybe look like this. But if it's focused and impactful and well done, which is really, sort of my credo, like do it well. Whatever it is you're doing, do it well. If you're going to shoot big, maybe so I don't want people to be afraid of how will I do this and what will I do? I'm Barry knows too. I try not to be too strict a teacher. So, we work with you. We work with you. Okay, what else? Who else has questions? Okay, that's Wendy. Hit it. Wendy, remind us again where you're from?
Chicago.
Okay, and I'm sorry, Farah, what work do you do? What department are you in?
Development and marketing.
Okay, I thought so. Okay, Wendy, where are you? What do you do?
So I'm also in development, and I actually have 2 questions, kind of
Okay.
independent of each other. So I wanted to understand or hear from Annette and Rena about the time commitment. I know we all tend to be stretched very thin. I just want to understand what that looks like with your existing work and also, of course, your personal life? Like, what did that look like? That's
That's
number
an
one.
important question. Yeah.
Sure. The work is very manageable. I have 3 children at home that I juggle all the time, and obviously my professional job as well. And the work itself definitely could handle. If you ask my husband about the trip, he might have a very different comment than I did, because certainly he had to do the heavy lifting family-wise while I was gone. But it was definitely, I figured it out, and I wouldn't have zero regrets. I would do it all again. And your team your community, my boss, everyone worked together to ensure that while I was gone, I could truly be gone. So having the commitment of your executive, your superior, your supervisor, I should say, is really important, because they help to make sure that you can be your full present self in all of the experiences.
I would interject and just add to Annette's great answer that besides just filling out the form and writing your evaluation, for you, we don't want execs to just, hit click and send. That we really want them to be vested in this. And anybody who's exec may have a question about either the time commitment or the should I be doing this, we can match them with an existing exec who can tell them about what it means. But I think that those who have endorsed participation for their people understand that while there might be a little short-term pain, the long-term gain is so worth it for them. So whether it means covering for them or, people get that, and they see that from, if they've been around, they see other programs that, or they just know from life that it'll be worth it in the end. But that's what we really want execs to be. We want people to be part of it and be vested in it, because it's going to benefit their center when they come back. What's the second part of your question?
The second part, I just want to understand the Israel experience. I mean, is that kind of like a typical, excursion for professional development, or what does the Israel experience look like? What does the learnings look like?
I'll start, and then maybe Rena and Annette, you can add in. What we aim to do is make a program where if you've never been, you're not missing what you don't want to miss in your first trip to Israel, right? We don't want you to go to Israel and never see Jerusalem or the old city, but we also build a program where if you've been multiple times, you're going to see something you've never seen before. And that was the feedback. I'll let Rena address that particular issue, but that we're not making a tourist trip. That's not what we're doing. We have various themes that we are, the theme of community is really what we're working on. So there are activities that are where you're learning, where you're sitting, where you're hearing presenters, it's not like get on the bus and go have, a teen trip to Israel. It's not that. There are days when you're dressed, like you would to go to work, because you're meeting other professionals. And there's fun too. But so just in terms of the philosophy behind it, that's where we head. And now I'll let the participants say more about that. That's another important question. Rena, you want to start?
Sure. I think that's right. And I think above and beyond, visiting places and listening to the speakers is really the time set aside to talk amongst ourselves and kind of regroup. That was, really important for being able to share our thoughts and bond with each other. We all went to Yad Vashem, and we had time to, cry and tell our grandparents stories afterwards for, those who had it or whatever it was. It was really creatively and well done, built into the program to have kind of that time to be together and share both as a big group and in smaller groups. And then of course also offline, so a lot of us at night went out for drinks together or whatever it was to also build those relationships. So I think what Andy said, it's not a team trip, but it does, we went to Masada and the Dead Sea. We did those things that everyone should see when they go to Israel, but we also did a lot more kind of learning as well.
Annette, you have an addition?
Sure. I would definitely say I appreciated, again, the thoughtfulness that went into crafting the itinerary, and having a dedicated tour guide who was phenomenal. Hearing from the speakers that we did, it wasn't just we went to Yad Vashem. We had a whole dialogue and a session beforehand discussing, how Israelis viewed the Holocaust, and topics that, again, I didn't necessarily understand or realize that there was a way that Israelis viewed it in that way. So it was incredibly helpful to have sort of that learning component throughout. And then to Rena's point, there's a mix of fun and exciting things, and our cooking session in the Jews village, like it was such an incredible mix of experiences and truly customized for the audience and to the program.
Thanks, ladies. Other questions? Did you get your answers, Wendy? Okay, Andrew from Nashville, what do you do? What kind of work do you do?
Hey, I am the camp director here, and I also oversee PJ Library. So I can definitely attest that what you were saying before about the summer months being quite busy. This program sounds really amazing. I'm very excited to be applying. I will say it's not this. I have questions. This part's not quite a question. In the South, camp's done in August. So it's really more May, June, July that the busier time. So the timing of the Israel trip is one thing that's giving me a little bit of pause. I will still be applying, and this sounds amazing. So it seems like something I could power through, but I do know that will be a very tough part of this commitment for me personally. My questions are a little bit more, I have two just like quick logistical ones more for Andy. And I guess my third question is also for Andy more, but so the logistic ones are, just this one's really quick. So like my exec is my supervisor. So in terms of the application, I just need the one. Okay, great.
But Andrew,
one,
there are different questions.
Yeah.
There are different questions. So your exec should look at both forms, because the exec is more of a kind of, yes, I agree, and here's my $1,200, and we're asking the exec to add on if they have something to say that wasn't covered by the supervisor. The supervisor form tells us, why do we take this guy? Why do we want Andrew in this group? And that's really important. Cool. So make sure that he answers them all.
Great, that's helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, second logistic question is, do you know at this time what the locations of the other meetups are, the other in-person sessions? Do you have those locations?
I think our fellows will attest that we are planners, and we try to give as much advance information as possible, and we're pretty true to form. Yes? Are we? Am I lying? I'm not lying. So that said, I usually hesitate to give information until I know it's true.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to say that I think there's a 99.9% chance that the first gathering in March will be in the New York area, New York, New Jersey area. It depends a little bit on who the cohort is. Sure. Again, demographics being what they are, we generally have more people east of the Mississippi on any program in this world. And if there's a critical mass, it's cheaper to do it here than to fly people somewhere else. But what if we have a critical mass, I don't know, in the Midwest, and we can meet in Chicago because we have a host member who can do it all for free, so, and in the fall of next year, again, I'm not ready to say we would try, again, depending on demographics, like we try to be fair to the West Coast, like the West Coast always has to travel. So if we can figure it out demographically and it works, so maybe we'd go to the West Coast. But so we know we're going to Israel. That much I can tell you. We're going to definitely be going. Israel Seminar will take place in Israel. Can I address your camp director? I'm a former camp director, so nobody loves camp directors more than me. Nobody.
Awesome.
Well, maybe other camp directors, but it's a problem with the May trip. Yeah. It's a problem no matter when we put it, I have learned. I mean, I know that, last year I had arts and culture people who said, I want to come, but that's the week that we have our big book fair. And that's all the JCCs have, but we're always going to hit a problem. Now, you want camp people in your cohort. I say no more, right? Camp people know that. And now my fellows here also know that, because camp people are group people, right? You need them, you want them. I can hook you up if you'd like with some of the camp people that were on our trip. They ran back from the trip and flew off to camp, never to be heard from again until September. And I can live with that. I mean, that's only fair. They barely could breathe. I think they would tell you that they would do it again. I'll say one other thing, and I don't want it to keep you from applying now. Because of this calendar issue, I do have in the back of my head that maybe in cohort 3, we play with the calendar. You know, maybe we start the program in October and we go to Israel in January. I don't know. And I don't like to get ahead of myself, but I'm very sensitive to it, very aware of it. I don't want any camp people to be dissuaded because they see that date. But if it would be helpful to you, you can shoot me an email. We'll have you speak to one of our 5 camp directors.
Okay, thanks. I actually already connected with Becky through
Aaron Becky, she's so
Camp
useless.
Network. So yeah, she had great things to say and gave me some peace of mind about the timing as well. So
great.
Still a factor for me. But yeah, thanks. Yeah. I appreciate I understand the logistics of playing the in-person stuff too. So
I'll even go so far as to say that we moved the ideal dates up a week. You know, we had other dates set. And I called the camp directors and I said, is this going to be too tight? Yeah. They said, oh God, yeah. And so we moved it up a week and had to deal with it that way. So we're committed to camp people.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. I did have one more quick question for Andy.
Barry, I see you. Yeah.
So, you know, you're wrapping up the first group of this fellowship, which is exciting. Is there anything, I guess, aside from the calendar, just like more from a content perspective that you experienced in this first cohort that you said, you know, we're going to change it up a little bit in the second time? Like, is this going to be sort of a mirror image of what happened in the first cohort, or are there new things you're going to be implementing, things changing? Just curious about that.
Yes and yes. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is, you know, when you start a new program, you have to set it, you have to like do a test drive. And I am, and these 2 ladies will tell you, fairly neurotic about feedback and evaluation. I mean, I'll make them crazy. We had I think a 15-page evaluation form for our first 2 gatherings. The next one will be shorter, I can tell you that. Based on what we're hearing, feels like we did pretty okay the first time out. So I in my head, I kind of want to get 2 years under our belt where we really, you know, work out. There are some kinks that I know about that hopefully they never felt that have to get worked out. But I think it's going to be pretty close. There might be 1 or 2 speakers that I might shift in or shift out, not because they weren't great, but because maybe I'd like more women. Maybe I need more of a perspective from somebody who lives in a periphery in Israel and not everybody from Tel Aviv, you know, that sort of thing. The themes will probably be the same. They'll be tweaked. You know, so I have my list of, we have to do this next year, but writ large, I would say it falls along the same lines in looking at logistical changes and the calendar for the 3rd year, because this year, not every single thing is brand new. I'll be able to breathe enough to start thinking about, okay, what might we do the 3rd year that could be different, but I need to do the 2nd year this wasn't a fluke. We do this one. Oh, look at that. It worked last year, but you know, one thing we may do differently, and I don't know how these ladies will feel about it, is our Israel trip. If you're in Israel for a short period of time, you can't always do everything. You have, you know, if you're going to hit the center, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and then you can generally choose, okay, we'll do 2 other days, either in the north or the south. You can't always do everything. And last year we went north. A change for next year might be that we go south, and that way I'll be able to say, okay, this worked, this didn't, you know. But it breaks my heart because I want to take you everywhere, and we can't. So that's one thing I'm working on. But it'll be very.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andy.
You're very welcome, Barry.
Mine is a quick dates question to kind of bounce off Andrew. Is you have the in-person seminar for March 17th to 20th. For those of us who may work on the East Coast to have funny spring break schedules, we are running our Purim carnivals a week early. As much as you might be excited that Purim is on a Saturday to Sunday, and that sounded perfect until you realize also with Easter, that ends up being spring break for my entire community. So, is like, if that's something that we had to come later to that day, like I can run out of the Purim Carnival and get on a train, plane, or automobile as soon as I'm done. But that is a date that is interesting. I don't know if I'm the only person in the, you know, I don't know that if I'm the only person in the field. Some places are still doing it on Purim. but around
Right.
here, we want the people, we can't do a spring break. And while we're really interested in engaging, like many here, we do lots of different hats, and one of mine happens to be running for them.
Lucky you. Right. It's a problem because there are regional issues. John, do you have a response to this, or you just want to be up for the next question? Next question. Yeah, I mean, it takes days of my life to make the calendar because you're trying to cover
Totally.
all the continental and you can't do everything. And we really thought we had avoided Purim, but yes, spring break, whatever. I don't want to say off the top, yeah, you can come late, because it's just not, everything is planned so specifically. If we do, you're in Philly, right? Last year we started at 4:00 in New Jersey.
Oh, that I could probably get to by 5. Like, we're done by
One of
3.
my tweaks was if we can start earlier, we should start earlier. So it's
Okay.
possible that we'll start earlier that day, and you
would like others, we could always try and figure out.
yeah,
but
and maybe you can show up and have a really good number 2, and your director will have to say, this is an important investment and somebody's going to have to cover. Barry, you'll get it started. And then Joe, you're going to take it from here. But because I don't want to start making exceptions. There are, I can tell you, I mean, I've been teaching and doing this kind of stuff for a long time, and I've never had such tremendous attendance on anything ever. Graduate classes. I mean, and I think part of it is it's very clear that, what the dates are and people know. And I've been pretty clear about don't do it if you can't, or apply, but don't expect exceptions. And that's another reason why the cohort is where it is that people committed and they stayed committed, and they were like, and people don't want to let each other down. There have been, I think, 2 exceptions in the whole time when people are, look, people have lives. So unfortunately, sometimes there's a real emergency, or, early childhood folks. Any early childhood people on the call today? Yeah. So early childhood, their lives, they start, you've got kids. You've
like
got...
little children, no.
But, you have issues with people and
Yeah.
families, and, and so there have been legitimate clashes or problems or conflicts, but really almost none. So I don't want to, that's not something that I try to set up from the start. So I don't want to start even on this call to say, yeah, it's okay, you'll come late, because we're really not trying to do that. That was too long an answer, probably.
No, that was fine. Like, and I believe in leaning in, and Sawyer can say that from being on Israel calls with me last year for the Maccabi stuff. Like, that's why I wanted to ask. And
Yeah.
obviously, we have enough time to figure out contingencies.
Exactly. That's the thing. You're exactly.
One team. I wasn't sure if I was the only one, or where Purim was
Yeah.
falling for others as well because of that issue this year.
Right. I get it. John, you're up.
Hi,
And tell
everyone.
us what you do. What's your department?
Yeah, I'm coming to you from St. Louis, and I'm the Director of Cultural Arts.
Oh, beautiful. And
Saint-
forgive me, Barry, what do you do these days? What's your job?
I'm the Director of Engagement, so I do Jewish Programming of the J, JCC Without Walls Programming, Maccabi, and Diller Team Colors.
Okay. I'm just demonstrating the variety because it thrills me. Okay, John, forgive me, you're up.
Yeah,
You work in arts and culture.
Yeah, so I'm in charge of our annual film festival, our book festival, our professional theater, and our youth theater program.
Mhm.
So I'm just curious if there's, Andy, you mentioned, anecdotally having someone in cultural arts in the program, and never having been to Israel and being new to this organization. I'm just curious when it comes to the cultural arts, the educational experience of being in Israel and the teaching that's provided. What are some ways that you think this would strengthen the cultural arts program, or my representation of these 4 programs to our community?
Wow. I can tell you this, of our 18 cohorts, and they're all sending me, what not their initial, but maybe their middle of the road idea is for their project. The vast majority are in arts and culture. The vast majority. And not all of these people work in arts and culture.
Oh,
and
great.
the people who do feel inspired, motivated, elevated. I can talk about one person in particular. It won't take long for you ladies to guess who it is, who was talking about doing an art gallery, and I don't want to steal his thunder when you hear from him next week. He works in art. He runs the Art Academy. And he said, yeah, I want to do like an art show. I've done it before for Israel Independence Day. And I said, well, Gustavo, why? You've done that already. So why, and he looked at me and he went, Andy, I've been to Israel now. It's a whole other, he said, I do, yeah, Black History Month, I do an exhibition, and Hispanic Month, I do an exhibition, and I do an exhibition for all kinds of cultural groups. And I've been doing an Israel exhibition. Now it's completely different. That's from the field. I can tell you right then and there, and I can connect you to this young man, he is a young man. And he'll tell you what that means. And his ideas are much more expansive than anything he's ever done for any of his other art shows. So he came away from the experience so motivated and so full of, as an arts person, I love them as much as I love camp. Sorry, development, I don't know how to do that. I think you're geniuses. I don't know how to do that. Arts are one of the great educational tools, period. And when you're inspired and you're an art person or a culture person, the sky is the limit to where you can go with it. So the fact that people are choosing arts and culture projects tells you one thing. And the fact that somebody is so deeply involved in the arts, art in particular, and feels like he has, his ideas are beyond what he himself thought he would be able to do. So I don't know if I've answered that or not, but
No,
honestly,
I couldn't ask for a better, more inspirational answer.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
That's fantastic. If you're interested, I'm sure that Gustavo would be happy to chat with you.
Great.
Okay, yes, and this is Natalie in Winnipeg. What do you do, Natalie?
Hi, so I'm the manager of programming. So I might be a problem with your maths mode because I'm the one who lead it, but still we're gonna see if it's gonna work. Yeah. So my question, like I'm Israeli, I'm here in Canada only 4 years. There is like a point to apply, or it can be like more overqualified.
Right. And two good points. First of all, in terms of Yom Ha'atzmaut, you may have seen that we put on the application. We understand that the timing,
I saw it.
and that's the reason, camp people, that we're interfering a little bit with Yom Ha'atzmaut because we had to go a week. I remember if we went earlier or late, probably earlier, so that we could get the camp people home. And the result was there may be people doing Yom Ha'atzmaut, and that is hard for them because we're right after Yom Ha'atzmaut. But we decided this time, we'll do it this way. In the hopes that for a given year, somebody would cover you. I would say this. It can't hurt to apply, and it's my refrain every time. Until we have the applicant pool, we don't know. We don't know. What if I wind up with a group that's diverse in every single way, but there's, nobody who has any Israel experience? That actually might work, because then I could maybe shift things a little. But what if I have one person I want to take and they have a lot of Israel experience, but they're the only one, and I feel like it could balance if I bring somebody else. I will be honest with you and say it's not designed for Israelis. It's really not. You've only been here 4 years, which means it's not even like, you're Israeli, but you've been here 15 years and you need to see sort of what's happening in Israel now. Like, my guess is that you're pretty connected to Israel. So you might not be in the top tier of candidates, and that's just me trying to save you time and energy. That said, it doesn't hurt to apply. You just don't know how the cards are going to fall, but I don't want to be giving false expectations. It's a pretty, well, maybe one of our fellows could talk about the application. I've been told that the application is more involved or intense, or I don't know, than others. I don't really know what to compare it to. So it is time consuming. It's not crazy, but I think it's more than maybe people were expecting when they sat down to do it. So I think you could apply, you should apply, you never know. If you see that this is really going to take hours that you don't have, then maybe, Another thing I'll also say for people who are maybe shouldn't, you can apply this year. If you don't get accepted, because again, we're not going to have spots for everybody. That's just the sad truth. You could all be wonderful and appropriate and fabulous, and I love you all, and we won't have enough spots for all of you. If you don't get accepted, you may get a letter that says, if you'd like, we can reactivate your application for next year. So, you've got it in, and then you won't spend the time next year. And maybe, who knows, maybe in 3 years, Natalie, we have a program just for Israel, who knows? So that's another thing to think about. But I would say, if you have the time and the inclination, somebody wrote on their evaluation that they enjoy the application. Fran told me that. that doing the application made me think about things I hadn't really thought about. So even, whether I get in or not, which is very sort of clever, whether I get in or not, I've enjoyed thinking about these questions. So that's something to throw into the.
Thank you for your honesty. Thanks.
Yes, I appreciate your question. So it's 2:00. I want to let you go, but I also want to be here. If people have additional questions, I'll hang around. I don't know if my fellows can hang around. Chelsea, you have a question, but what I'm going to do now, because I like to stay on time, is to officially close and to say thank you to everyone. I just love seeing the variety of people who work in this movement. I want to thank Rena and Annette, and I know you've already given me an hour. If you have to go, you should go, but I'm going to hang around and take additional questions. Okay, so
I'm
great.
happy to hang around too.
Okay, great. Chelsea, what's your question?
Sure. So I'll introduce myself. So my name is Chelsea Gerald. I'm the Director of Marketing at the Jewish Community Alliance in Jacksonville.
I forgot to ask you. Thank you. Jacksonville.
Don't worry. Listen,
yeah.
I'm on top. I got it. I got you. So I think my question is I love that you are offering to connect people. So I was wondering if there was anyone in marketing that went on the last cohort that could you could connect me to, just because marketing is a massive job, and I want to see the kind of commitment that they had to, especially for this, and I'm excited for it. So that was my first question, Andy. And then my second question is, I have a unique opportunity to go back to Israel as well. So if I were to be on both of these, it'd be 2 trips. And that trip, I think they're looking to start on that December webinar that could be. So my question to you is, I'm still going to apply for this fellowship, but if I were to get that other opportunity to go to Israel as well, that would be that December date, could that be an issue, or is there a way that I could do that webinar while in Israel if I needed to?
I don't know where you're sitting. You can get on anywhere in the world, and I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to be sitting at your desk. As long as you can get on for an hour and a half when we're having the webinar, don't let that be a problem. And we have somebody who is in marketing this cohort, Allison Cohen. She's in Staten Island, and Sawyer, we're going to have Chelsea's email from her registration, right? So we'll connect you to Allison, who has already volunteered. She said, I'll talk to anybody who wants to talk. And you can ask her all the questions that you might have.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll take care of that. Thank you. Debbie, do you have a question? Or you're just listening in?
Just listening in mostly. I did want to also
What, we can't hear you.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Can't hear you. You might have, I think you're muted. Try again. Want to write it in the chat? We can't hear you. That's okay. We had a similar problem here. What's your question, Debbie? Chat, you can type it. Do we see a question?
No, she may need a second to.
Here we go. Yeah. Wanted to know what the most interesting unexpected session was. Okay, that's a question for Rena or Annette. Most interesting or unexpected session. Good question. They're all good questions today.
Yeah, I think actually what Annette brought up, our speaker before Yad Vashem, was definitely a perspective. I mean, I'm a grandchild of the Holocaust survivors that I've never heard before. He talked about like how kind of Israelis saw the survivors, and a lot of it in like not a great light, because a lot of Israelis were these strong Zionists like starting the country, and they kind of he talked about how some culturally some people looked at the Holocaust survivors as like kind of these people who suffered or let themselves suffer or something like that, and that was really interesting. He talked obviously in a lot more detail. Hopefully you'll get to meet him, because I think it was just a perspective that I hadn't heard before of something that I feel like I know a lot about and very closely connected to. So I think that would be my choice.
Annette, what say you?
I actually loved our very, very first session with Avram
Infeld.
Yes, where he was so passionate, so captivating. But one of us had asked, I have such a hard time describing Judaism? Is it a religion? Is it a culture? What is it? And he spoke at length about it being a peoplehood, or the Jewish people. And just the way that he so almost like definitively and succinctly just described it. I was like, aha. And it can mean all of the things. It can be the religion, it can be the culture, it can be a place, it could be all of these things together. And it was just, I don't know, it was a little bit of an aha moment, and right off the bat, first session.
We try to start with a bang.
You did, you achieved.
Debbie, thanks for the question, and thanks for telling us what job you do. I forgot to ask. That's interesting. I that's like another perspective to bring some people who don't always have frontal work with the members, but then maybe are back of the office. Although as an office manager, you probably see a lot more members than we would expect. Any other questions, Debbie, Chelsea? Okay, so thank you. Thank you for coming. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for hopefully your applications, and to be continued. Rena and Annette, thank you so much. You were so wonderful. It's fun to hear. It's fun to hear, like, now,
Yeah, it's awesome how there were so many people interested.
Yeah, that's great. That was a really good turnout. We'll see if there's a need. Maybe we'll do a third one, before the deadline. We'll see if we can squeeze it in.
Andy, how did the first one go? Was there a lot of
It was nice. It was smaller. I think we were 4 people. It was only a week after the application